All right, everybody, welcome to Unscripted. And today we just announced from my very soon studios here in Hilliard, Ohio, not there just quite yet, but we will be broadcasting from the Junction in Old Hilliard, and I'm real excited about that. But honestly, I'm much more excited about today's guest. So let me go ahead and read a little bit of the bio, and then I really want you to tell your story. So just to start off on the bio right off the top, what an honor today to have Major retired Terrence Ty Mans. He enlisted in the U.S. Army in 1980. In 1987, he was accepted in the Army ROTC program at Wright-State University, right here in beautiful Dayton, Ohio. In 1989, he graduated and was commissioned second lieutenant infantry, regular Army. Ty served as an Army Infantry Officer in tactical assignments in Germany, Korea, and worldwide from 1989 to 2003. I'm going to pause it right there and just go ahead and say, because there's a lot in your bio that I want you to really tell, because I want to make sure we get it right. But man, let me just pause right there and say, from my family to you, thank you. Thank you for your service, for your family's service. Your family is military, and there is no greater respect than I have for those that have served and allow me to get on a little podcast and do whatever I want in this country. So thank you. Before we get anything else, I really wanted to sincerely thank you for your service.
Appreciate that.
With that, let me turn it over to you, man. Why don't you fill in the rest of the gaps for us, and we'll get into my brother's keeper. But why don't you tell us a little bit about you, Ty?
Yeah, well, I grew up in a small town in West Virginia. That's why I still love West Virginia to this day.
Rocking the Mountaineers, love it.
Rocking my Mountaineers. You can take me out of there, but I'm still a West Virginia kid. So, yeah, I grew up in a coal mining town in West Virginia. My dad was a coal miner. Everybody around that area at that time in the 60s, 70s, they were all coal miners. And, I joined the military to really kind of escape. I wanted to leave West Virginia and see the world. I had an older brother that was already in the military, and I just said, hey, I'm going to do what he's doing. And it turned out to be 24 years later.
Wow.
Wow. I'll be honest, it wasn't planned that way. It was like, okay, I'm going to go out and go into the world, spend a couple years in the military, go to college. But, man, I just fell in love with the military. I fell in love with everything that it offered, serving the country. And I just kept wanting to go further and further. And it led to, like you said in the bio, found myself 7 years later being offered an opportunity to go to college and finish my degree. And I jumped on it. That was the whole plan from the beginning. And I said, well, yeah, okay, I'll take that. And believe it or not, when I went to college, I was going to sign up to only go back into the Guard so I could study film. My plan was I was going to go out to California and be this big time movie star and make all these great movies. In 89 when I graduated, and I just couldn't do it. The day before I was school, a few days before school started, but a day before we at ROTC had to make our selections and make it final what we wanted to do, I went into my colonel's office and said, hey, I can't do this. I want to go back on active duty. I want to be an infantryman. I want to change everything. And he let me, and the rest is history. I did. And I'm so grateful that I did that. It was the best decision that I ever made. Being an infantry officer was one of the greatest times of my life. And it led me to my wife and now my boys. So no regrets, none. And, after I got out of the military, I played around in corporate world for a while. And now here I am the last, I think, 8 years I started this company, and here we are.
There you are.
Well,
we stand on the shoulders of your decision to go back into the military and your family's decision. And again, I have the ultimate respect for that. I myself did not serve in the military. My dad was in the Navy, and I have so much respect for those that allow us to have freedoms like we do. And there's no greater honor, I don't think, than to serve this country. And so thank you honestly for that. So. With that, man, let's transition, because you are in a different realm now, and we're here today to talk about My Brother's Keeper. And what a film that was. Before we get into too much, man, I got to say this right off the jump. I want to see Jesus, Pastor Clinton McFarland. Can we talk about that for a minute? Like, we're going to
song, right?
Did he bring the house down?
Oh man, let me tell you it was funny because I met him at a screening for A Question of Faith, which was the movie I wrote. And his church did a private screening. They're from Atlanta, about an hour and a half down the road, or up the road. And we were talking afterwards, and he started telling me about his music. And I said, well, I'm getting ready to start work on this next film, and we are looking for music. I'm always out there. And a few days later, he sent me all the tracks. And I'm laying in bed. My wife was already asleep. I've been down here in my office working. I go upstairs, stick my headsets in, and I'm just sitting there listening to the music. And that song came on, about the third or fourth one in the track. Ooh. And I just straight up in the bed.
Right.
My wife up. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This song, you got to." I'm trying to, pull him up, trying to stick it in her ear. She's like, "Leave me alone." But man, I mean, from the moment he started singing that song, I said, "That's the title track right there."
That's it. And we'll talk about the movie, but man, it hit different in the movie. Yeah. And I'm telling you, I've had it on rotation for about 3 or 4 days. And every time I go to church, he took us to church. And I told my family yesterday, we have a little family group text that we all keep in touch. I mean, they're all in the same house, but I got my son's off in college, but I sent it to them and I was like, y'all, we're going to church. Listen to this. Man, he got it. So, oh man, so good. And I know it has nothing to do with the movie, and maybe it has a little bit, but it
has a lot to do with it, because I mean, you're right. When you hear that song, even in the trailer, it's like, whoa, who's singing this song? And I listen to it all the time. I'm blessed to have all the songs on that track, on that album. But man, I mean, that song just blew me away.
Yeah. I mean, big moment in the movie, and I don't want no spoilers. No spoilers. We want people to see it, but big moment in the movie. And I'm not gonna lie, man. I had a little tear rolling down my face because he took us to church, and there's a powerful moment in the movie. So let's get right to the movie, because that's a big part of our thing today. First of all, the cast. I mean, let's talk about the cast, and I'm just going to read these off real quick for anybody listening. So the movie's called My Brother's Keeper. Let's start there. The movie called My Brother's Keeper comes out March 19th.
March 19th.
March 19th. Okay, so we're going out March 19th. How's that going to come out because of COVID and all those things? So anybody listening, how are they going to be able to find My Brother's Keeper on March 19th?
It will be out in theaters.
Okay.
So if you go to mbkfilm.com, which is the website, My Brother's Keeper, or mbkfilm.com, you can register there, and they will be sending out, as it gets closer, which theaters will have the movie. Right now, we believe we're going to be anywhere between 200 to 300 theaters across the U.S.
Wow.
So, our thing is, we understand COVID, and we want people to be safe. We're praying for you to be safe. But if you want to go see what we think is a very lovely Christian movie, just be safe and go see it. And so, but mbkfilm.com, that's where they can find out where the theaters will be.
mbkfilm.com. Did I say that right? And I'm going to have all this in the blog post when I put everything up online. So anybody listening, but M is in My Brother's Keeper, mbkfilm.com. So that's all right. So that's good to know. So that's how you can find the film. But let me just run down this lineup, because unbelievable. Joey Lawrence from Blossom and Melissa and Joey fame. T.C. Stallings, who was in War Room, courageous, former professional athlete, and man, that guy's put together. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, Ty. I was watching the movie. I'm like, man, I need to go work out because this guy's making me feel real bad. He is put together. He is built. Keisha Knight and Pullian. Am I saying it right? Pullian. Keisha Knight Pullian, who most people will know from Cosby fame. My wife, as we were watching the movie, said, that's that girl from Cosby. So Keisha Knight, Pullian, Greg Allen Williams, who may not, that name may not sound familiar, but anybody who sees him will know right away. He was in Baywatch, Necessary Roughness, In the Line of Fire. And I think a lot of people remember him as one of the coaches from Remember the Titans. And that's just 4 right off the top. I mean, this is a star-filled cast fantastic cast, and really, really did a nice job in the film, and especially Pop. Pop was great. I loved his role. I loved the whole thing. He really did great. So, what was it like putting that cast together?
You know, it's a blessing. I got to tell you, for me as a writer, to look out and see that lineup of talent, reading words that you put on paper, I thank God every day for it.
Yeah.
But you know, it was great because TC was in A Question of Faith, so was Greg.
Mm-hmm.
So TC and I was actually out one day by the craft table when we were filming A Question of Faith, and we were just talking. First time I've ever met him. We just met at the craft table that day, and you know, I told him, I said, "Man, I really like your acting. You're good, man. You're very good." And I said, "You know, I got this movie I want to write." And we talked a little bit about it, and he said, "Well, all right, if you write it, let me know." And a month later, I sent him the draft, and he read it and was like, I got to play this part. I got to do it. And Greg, of course, again, he worked on A Question of Faith, and he had told me, "Hey, if you ever do anything else, let me know. I like your writing." So you know, I called him up one day and told him about this, sent him the script, same reply, "Hey, I want to do this." And it just started rolling, you know, unstoppable at that point. Keisha got it, loved it. Robert Richard was sitting in a coffee shop in LA when my business partner bumped into him and told him about the movie, sent him the script. He loved it. So, I mean, Joey, Jeff Rose, it just kept going on and building. And before you know it, I remember the day when we were sitting in the production office here in Columbus, Georgia, where we did the film. And we had all the pictures of the people who had agreed to do the movie up there. And Kevin Otto and I were sitting there, the director, and we just looked at each other, and Kevin said, "That's a really good cast."
Yeah.
He said, "You'll get a theatrical release with that cast."
Yeah.
And here we are, a few weeks away from that. But I got to tell you, they just did a great job. I can't wait for people to see the synergy between Greg and Robert Richard, the relationship between TC and Robert Richard's character, TC and Keisha's character. You got all these many relationships happening in that movie that I just think people were just going to enjoy.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention Robert. He was fantastic. But it all kind of centered around TC. I mean, TC was the backbone, in my opinion, to the movie. His role, and how he embraced it and made it so believable. He really, really did a good job, and everybody else really played off of him. He was fantastic. Yeah,
it's his story, isn't it? It's Travis' story.
Yeah.
And, you know, TC, like I said, he just grabbed it.
Mm-hmm.
He just embraced it. And there were times he would walk over and say, "Hey, so should I do it like this or do it like this?" To me, because this story is kind of based in my father's experience coming home from Vietnam with PTSD. So he would come ask me questions like that, then he would just go back and just nail it. I mean, there was and you've seen the movie, the scene where he's yelling at the pastor.
Mm-hmm.
I had to leave because I remembered that day, and he was doing it so well. And I just walked down the street, and everybody like, where did he go? And I finally came back, and they said, "What happened?" I said, "I couldn't watch it again." And I remember being that 10-year-old boy when that happened. That's how great and how close he was to that, you know, that actual event that day.
What beautiful chaos for you as a director to have lived that, to see it play out so hard for you personally, but to know that this guy got it. This guy did it right. Yeah. He's going to bring it to the audience like I lived it. And again, it's a tough thing to live. I'm glad you brought it up because I saw you on another interview and you mentioned this statistic, and it's a tough statistic, but 22 service personnel each day commit suicide.
Yeah.
From PTSD or possibly other issues.
That's
Man,
right.
that's hard
to hear. Big number, isn't it?
That's hard to hear.
Yeah, it is. And you know, without naming their names, but I've had 2 soldiers from my command who are no longer with us because of that. And you know, it gets tough. One of them's anniversary of his death was just 2 days ago. And every year, he's been gone now 8 years, but every year on that day, it grabs me.
Yeah.
I'm working my way, out of this funk all day. It's like, okay, I got to get to work, but it's tough because you see pictures of them, and of course with social media, people pop things up, so you're constantly reminded. But there are a lot of people out there like me that have lost loved ones because of this horrible mental illness.
Yeah. Well, I'm so thankful that you put this together, and it's hard, especially for those of us on the sideline who have not served, to understand. And I think TC and your writing and your directing did a good job of immersing us into what that may be like. And maybe we jumped too far ahead, because anybody listening to this understands. So there's a film called My Brother's Keeper. And it is about a military, and maybe I should have you're the director, maybe you should explain it better. But my viewing of it was it's a man returning home from military because of the death of someone in his unit. I believe I'm saying that correctly. And it's him trying to, one, adapt to being home, and two, dealing with PTSD. And at one point, he's in the grocery store parking lot, and somebody smashes a couple of carts together, and just that noise alone sends him. It's triggering to him. And we get to see that unfold with just an incredible actor named T.C. Stalling. So I apologize. I probably should put this at the beginning of the conversation, but for anybody listening, that's kind of what we're talking about. Great film, powerful film about healing and friendship, both past and new friendships. And I hope I'm giving this justice, Ty. Please fill in any gaps.
You're right on. Yeah, I'll make one correction. Is I didn't direct this movie.
Okay.
My friend Kevin Otto, who directed A Question of Faith, I asked Kevin to come in and direct this one, and in part because, one, Kevin I think is a great director, and he and I, he's also a former infantryman, so we got along great, and we get along great. But two, is because what you said, I think I was too close to it. Mm-hmm. And I needed that bit of separation. Writing it was fine, executive producing it was great, but when I started thinking about it, I was like, do I really is this the one movie I want to direct?
Yeah.
And I decided, no, I probably need to back off it a little bit. And I'm glad I did, because Kevin did a great job, as usual. Yeah. He did a great job.
He did, and I apologize for that. For that, it's just a very well put together, thought out, and again, I think the entire acting crew did a fantastic job of immersing us into the story. All right, real quick, back to Unscripted here. We had a little bit. Welcome to the world of Unscripted and technology. We were speaking of Jeff Rose when we froze up there, and his role as pastor in the movie, and he was really, really fantastic. I think that's what we were talking about, was just how great he was. He really reminded me of any pastor I've ever had, and he played his role really, really well. I truly believed he was a pastor. He's fantastic. He's, again, every person you had in their role played their role so well, so well. It was great. So let me ask you this, because we talked about PTSD, and I know that's near and dear to your heart as a part of why you wrote this film. What can the church do? And this is one of the questions that I received. How can the church help with PTSD? Because I know we see it in the film, but this is a difficult thing, because none of us, most people haven't. As I said, I was on the sideline. I'm thankful for our military. What can we do in a world we don't understand? How can we help?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I always, you see some churches, they do have military ministries, but it's walking on the eggshells. It really is, because I believe there are churches that would love to do it, but are maybe afraid to do it because of maybe some liabilities associated with it. Or maybe they think they need to do too much. But I will say this, and I tell this story, and I've told it many, many times before, that when my father was struggling with it, my mom was leaving him. She packed us up, and we had gone to our grandmother's. And he came a few days later, and they had a conversation. My grandmother suggested that they go talk to the pastor and get counseling. because, you know, we're a poor West Virginia coal mining family. You couldn't afford professional counseling, but they did. They went to the church, and that led to my father becoming a deacon and becoming a minister, and eventually he became a pastor and pastored his own churches. But it was the fact that that one person at that church was just willing to sit and listen to him. And sometimes that's all you need. I'm not saying that the people at the church will be the professional answer to healing. I'm not saying that. They will be the spiritual answer to healing. But for my family, it was a bridge. You know what I mean? It was this person who was a good man, but struggling with this horrible illness that didn't know how to get over this gap. And that, you know, going talking to that pastor allowed that bridge to be built. And on the other side was salvation and healing for him.
Yeah. Awesome.
So I think for churches is, if you think you have that, or just have people that are willing to sit and just listen. And that could be that bridge to get them to wherever it is they need to be next. Whether that's to see, a professional, medical treatment, which I believe you should seek, but you just maybe need to be that bridge. Yeah. And that could save a life. Who knows? Yeah.
And then we see that in the film, not spoiler alert. Right? Spoiler alert. No, it was amazing to see how the church stepped up in that role. What other resources are available for people? You may or may not know this. What resources are available for people struggling with PTSD?
Well, you know, for the veterans, there are like for me, I'm not struggling with PTSD, but if I were, I could go right out here to the Army base. They have services there for soldiers. The VA has services. Professional counseling in town. I don't want to qualify myself because I'm not qualified to do that, but there are services out there and there are people out there. There are even hotlines that you can pick up and call. And I believe that the first step to completing that bridge is finding someone to talk to, whether it's a hotline or a VA appointment or whatever that case may be. It all starts there. And that's the hardest part, because I'm not qualifying myself or speaking about anyone else, but for my dad, we watched him suffer this for a bit of time, knowing now that all he had to do is walk through that church door. So the hardest part is getting that first step to be taken.
Sure. And
once that happens, then many, like my father, find that redemption there and that healing there. And, my dad eventually sought professional counseling, but I got to tell you, I don't know if any of that professional counseling did as much as the pastor's counseling did. The pastor's counseling changed our whole family dynamic and gave us nearly another 40 years with him before he passed away.
So this one's personal for you. It's real personal. This movie's personal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it makes it even more powerful knowing that. And I hope anybody that goes to see this, that hears this, that goes to see it, knows that this one's special for you. I think as you were talking, I was just thinking about how, I've never served, and maybe one of the regrets in my life, that because I have so much admiration and respect for those that have, I have to think that there's a level of, and I think TC did a great job in the film in this. There's a level of self-reliance and because of the leadership structure within, as I understand it, within the military, of pulling your bootstraps up, doing your thing. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to power my way through this because, right. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like TC did a really good job of embracing the fact that that's got to be, you said it, I think a minute ago, that's got to be the hardest part, is reaching out to somebody. In this case, it was Keisha and her role, which was fantastic.
Yes.
Reaching out and saying, I need some help. Because I don't think in the military, man, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think in the military there's a space for someone to say, I need some help. It's do better, get better, be strong, be tough.
And it's not just with PTSD. Mm-hmm. Look, me and my buddies, one of my platoon leading buddies came to my house a few weeks ago, and we sat on my back porch, and we were laughing about all our aches and pains now, and then how silly, or for better words, stupid we were back then, being young, knowing that I got a broke foot, but I'm not going to the doctor.
There you go.
Yeah. I know I have a broke foot. I got a broke finger. I'm not going to the doctor. Don't need it. So we did that stuff because in those leadership roles, you want to always project this image of, hey, I got, when you're a platoon leader, you have 40 men or women that you're responsible for.
Yeah.
And you grow these relationships with these soldiers, these Marines, whatever. And you just feel like nobody can take care of them better than you. You never want to be away from them.
Right.
And to the point where I missed my first son's birth because my colonel gave me the option. He said, okay, man, you can go up to the DMZ border with your company because it's your turn to rotate up there, or you go home and see the birth of your first child. That shouldn't have been a question in any other career field. Right. But all I could think about was, man, what if one of my men died up there while I was away? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, I was thinking, well, what happens when something happens to my wife or my baby away from there? Yeah. But my wife, being a former military person herself, understood that and said, no, you're the company commander. You need to be with your men.
Yeah.
And I didn't see my firstborn until he was about almost 8 weeks old.
Yeah.
So it's hard to take people in those leadership positions in the military and things like that, and pull them away to do something for themselves. Mm-hmm. It really is, because the tendency is, no, I have to take care of these people that I'm responsible for. So no matter what, regardless the cost, my job is to take care of them. And unfortunately, that carries over to what we see with PTSD, taking that first step, that type of thing. But it's a remarkable thing that happens. And I still live with it. I mean, I still have young men. Some of my son's friends still come by here just to hang out with me, and I'll go, no, can't go here tonight. I got these young cats coming over. Yeah. So that I can just sit and talk to them and whatever they want to talk about. Hey, what do you want to talk about? But I feel like now it's my responsibility to help try to mentor and help educate them.
Yeah.
So it never leaves you.
We get upset when our Starbucks isn't right. Right. I mean, and I that's a quote I give quite often from a song that says, you better take your so-called problems and put them in quotations, because I think most people get upset if their Starbucks order isn't right, or if their Chipotle didn't come out fast enough. And that's what you all are dealing with. And you serve our country and give us a freedom that we don't even understand. And we take full advantage of. So as you were speaking, that's all I could think of was, we get upset about the smallest of things when we don't even realize what you all are dealing with when you come home. And I think what you said too is powerful. It reminds me of Gregory's role as Pop with his coffee shop, sitting down and talking to TC when he came back, and just leaving that door open so he could have an avenue and a place to speak.
Yeah, a place to come.
Yes.
And that was Pop's character.
Yes.
Pop's character was that guy who's left the military years ago, but his door is always open.
Yeah. Always open. I wish those places existed, and I hope they do. I don't know them off the top of my head, and if I did, I'd highlight them right here, because I think they're needed, Oh,
yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I think it goes back to your point about the church. I think the church can be one of those places. The church, the church, the whole church, not just any particular church. Yeah, but if anybody's hearing this, I think hopefully you take away, one, go see the film. That's the biggest reason why we're talking today. But hopefully they've heard a story behind the film, because it brings it to a new perspective. I think if I'd have had this conversation with you and then seen the film, I would have seen it through different eyes. I was just viewing a film, and even then it affected me. It impacted me. And especially the end. I don't want to give away the end. You got to go see it. So
okay, go see the end. Go
that's
see
right.
the whole one.
That, and I'm dying to come sit on your porch because I think we could probably talk for a long time.
Oh man, we'll talk all day. my wife calls down and goes, "Send those dudes home. It's bedtime. I want to go to sleep." But it's hard, man. I'm right before you. Minutes before you called in, or I called in to you. Young guy that we grew up from the time he was maybe 8, 9 years old. He lived in our first neighborhood. We've had him around our family the whole time. My sons call him their big brother. And he's a family man now with wife and 2 kids himself. And he called me just right before I died and said, "Hey, I'm in town. Can we get together tonight?" Like, absolutely. Come on over about 6:30. So I love that. So yeah. I love being able to be that guy that these young people grow up and they move on. But when they come back in town, they still want to come sit and talk to you.
Yeah.
And I just always, make the time for that. So, but yeah.
Well, Major Mans, you have left your mark, and I know that's going to continue on, not only through this film, but the other films that you've mentioned, through those phone calls. Films are awesome, and I hope everybody goes to see this one. But I'm telling you that moments on your porch. I know your son called you when we were just before we clicked record. Moments with your son, those leave as much of a mark as any film will ever leave. Because those are lasting things that you're doing, and your experience and sharing and listening and being that person for people. I don't need to tell you this. I'm sure you already know it, but from some guy that just met you today, thank you for doing that as well.
I do. I hope people, when they do go see the movie too, they see the power and the strength of a military non-commissioned officer.
Yes.
Because this movie is being told from an NCO's point of view. Not an officer's point of view, but an NCO's point of view. And I was very careful to make sure that I did that. I didn't want anybody in the film being an officer. So that's why Pops is a former NCO. I wanted that when he and TC's character talk to each other, I wanted to be that NCO to NCO feel. Because I started my career enlisted before I became an officer. And I always like to tell people that I've had the 2 hardest jobs in the world. And that's how I phrase it to folks. And I always say being an infantry officer is the 2nd hardest job in the world, that if you think about it. And people will often go, "Well, why?" So because when bullets start flying and things start blowing up all around you, the infantry officer is the guy who gives the order to say, "All right, we have to go over there where all that stuff is happening and take out that enemy." The hardest job is the infantry NCO, because he has to take those men over there and do it.
Yeah.
And I have all the respect in the world for NCOs in the military. Being an officer, but there's no harder job. And I argue that with anyone. I say, "Okay, Nate, give me a job." I'll argue you all day that if you think your job is harder than taking 9 men into an area where everybody's shooting at you, then I'll sit and argue with you all day. I can't think of a harder job. And I wanted that strong NCO presence to come out in this film. You see the struggle, but you see the pride in TC's character as well as being this powerful NCO. So I hope that all of my NCO friends and all the NCOs that are in the service today, if they go see this, they see themselves that, who they are. They are the heart of our military.
Yeah.
And you just can't do without them.
And his pain. His pain in losing, again, spoiler alert, but his pain in losing some of his guys was our pain in watching the film. And again, TC was fantastic in bringing us into that moment, as well as everyone involved in the film, but TC obviously played the role. But I think telling the story and his pain of those are his guys. That's his team.
I just love the way Keisha just drew into that pain immediately and tried to step in. There were times when TC and Keisha would do scenes in this movie, and afterwards I would walk up to them and go, "Man, I sure didn't write it that good."
Yeah.
Great.
Wow.
Because the 2 of them, Keisha is just she's been in the game for a long time. She's an incredible performer.
Yeah.
And seeing her in this movie, It's a little different than some of the stuff we've seen her in before. But man, she just embodied that role, didn't she? She just came in there, and you were rooting for her to win because you knew if she did, what the outcome would be for him.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I could talk about that cast all day. They
as well you should. They and so we'll talk about it on your back porch sometime if I come through.
Absolutely.
No, this has been fantastic. So I want to make sure I get all your links before we close out. I know we've already talked about it. So there's MBK film.
MBK, Mike Bravo Kilo, Mike, My Brother's Keeper, MBKfilm.com is the web. And then, or not, they can just go to Manns, MANNS, Mackey, MACKIE, studios.com. And we also have the link back to the site there. So they can
find it. Any other places or any other things that, and I know the trailer is probably on one of those two sites, if not both.
Trailers are on those two sites. They're on my social media, which you can find me, Ty Manns, across all the social media boards, TY Manns across all the social media boards. But yeah,
Twitter and all that good stuff.
And we have some new trailers coming. We just turned the new trailers in yesterday.
Okay.
So we got some new trailers coming, and thanks. This is great. We just pray that people will go out and be not only entertained, but touched by this movie.
We need it. We need films to come back, and we need them to come back strong. We need distractions, and especially distractions that are worthy of our time. And this is worthy of our time. This is a distraction that we all need to be aware of. Amidst our own, again, so-called problems, in quotations, with COVID and vaccines and being disrupted a little bit, we need to understand and keep that in perspective, because there's a lot bigger things that some people are walking around and dealing with.
It is. And, I was very careful, and I wanted to be very careful because, not knowing it then when I wrote it, but the environment that we are in with the COVIDs and all that, this film is not an indictment on anyone. It's not an indictment on the military. It's not an indictment on the service members, because we all put that uniform on, we raise our right hand, and we volunteer. It's just a story about someone that's suffering through something after serving his country.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to feel like, oh, you trying to say the Army did this. No, it's not. It's not an indictment on anyone. I love the Army. I love my military career. The best thing that could have happened to me. I would do every second all over again if I could. But I just want to tell this story that what happened to my dad when he came home.
Well, I believe you've honored him and you've honored his story. I didn't feel at any point that there was anything other than a story. And, maybe it's not PTSD, maybe somebody wasn't in the military, but either way, we need to talk. And the church is no better place, because there's not a lot of red tape, so to speak, that we have to cut through. We can just go straight to a pastor and sit down, and they've been called to that ministry, and they will help us find, hopefully, what we're looking for. And I think we all know what that is, ultimately, but we got to get there, and we got to have the conversation no matter what the issue is. But man, I'm so thankful that you brought this to light, and that I'm praying over this film. I hope it just does incredible things. And so people can go to the site and click on that and get awareness of what theaters it may be in. Is it going to be on any other? Because I know some of the streaming now, they're going to Showtime and HBO, whatever. Is it going to be on any other platforms or theaters only?
No, it's going to come out in theaters. And of course, how long it stay in theaters depends on, of course, the people going to see it. Yeah. And that's with any movie, and regardless in any environment. But yes, they are working right now for the streaming platforms, the DVDs, all that's being worked right now. I even think a couple of the cable networks have already started chiming in. So it will make its way through the whole system. And a lot of that will depend on how long it actually stayed in theaters. So,
well, anybody listening to my voice, let's support films that are making a difference. We're going to come out of this COVID, and we're going to come out of this, and we're going to get back to theaters one day. And this is a good chance to get out and get behind something that really means it's powerful. Get behind people doing great work, like yourself. And so anybody listening to this, please go to that website, check the film out, watch the trailer, hopefully some new trailers soon as well. And just get behind my guy here. He's really poured his heart into this. This one's personal. And for that, you know, I appreciate what you've done. It's awesome. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being on, not only for your service, not only for the film, all the reasons we've mentioned, just a ton of respect for you, sir.
No, thanks for having me. You know, believe me, I appreciate this a lot. I know you guys are busy, but just to come on and talk about words I wrote on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful and thankful to God that these things are happening right now. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. As soon as I get down to Georgia again, I'm gonna sit on your back porch. We're gonna talk some more. So.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm supposed to come to. We were supposed to have our ROTC reunion in Dayton this past year, but of course COVID stopped that. So the guys are actually planning that now for later in the year. But if we get back up there, I'll look you up.
Hey.
We'll find
I'm about an hour from Dayton. You get back into Ohio, you let me know. I'll come find you. Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you for your service. Thank you for this film. And thank you for your time today.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Appreciate you.